Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Leigh Spann.
All right, let's go. Welcome back to the WFLA Now Stream Center for this week's episode of Run for Fun. This show is designed to do more than just give you the tips and tricks to make you a better or faster runner, because we focus on helping you learn to love and enjoy the sport. And hit, if you love it and you keep doing it, you get better at it eventually, right? So that is that's a little secret there. I'm your host, Leigh Spann. I'm a meteorologist at WFLA here in Tampa, but I'm also an avid runner. And I certainly love telling people that running can be a wonderful and fun part of their lives. There are so many negative ideas, and we call it a bad rap about running. That people, approach it with just like a, go hard or go home kind of attitude, and that's just not fun. And then you don't want to stick with it. So we want to change all of that. And of course, the person who helped me learn, my coach, Coach Maria.
Hello, Leigh.
Welcome back.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Now, did you not wear a costume?
Oh, no, I did wear a costume, but I just was saving it because I really just wanted you all to guess what it was.
Okay, well, okay.
I knew it would be too hard to guess. So, here we go.
So if you've been listening to our podcast, the very first reason that Maria and I ever met, because we were talking about the
dew point.
Aha! It's how much moisture is in the air.
That's my costume. I mean, it's really kind of lame, but I worked really hard coloring that.
You did work very hard on it.
It took me 2 whole markers.
And dew points play such a role in how we approach running, because when it's really hot and humid, it's hard to run. And so you have to take it easy and give yourself a lot of grace.
Yeah, and you can still run a good race. You just have to take the data and set the ego aside and change your pace plan and still run really well, which a lot of our runners did at MCM this weekend. So
we had 2 major races this weekend. We had the Indianapolis marathon that I did, and then that was on Saturday, and then a whole bunch of our other friends ran the Marine Corps Marathon, which is in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
And it was really warm there.
It was really warm. And actually the temperature was the temperature was like 65 to 70, but the dew point was 60. So people thought it was cool and went out at the same pace, but the dew point was too high. So, I'm always going to plug dew point when I can.
So even on Halloween. So, and so I wanted to show about our Strava group, because it is continuing to grow. There's about 143 people now on our Strava group, which Coach Maria, we've talked about this. It's a free app that you can download onto your phone so that when you're out running or walking, it'll record sort of how far you've gone and that kind of thing. But we're using it as social media. And look what the folks really joined in today or last week, because while we were running in Indianapolis, the Great West Chase was going on, and we had 2 of our runners, Andres and Jennifer, both saying how much they enjoyed the race. They love the fact that it gives back to the West Chase Community School. So anyway, this is what we want people to be involved in on our Strava group. Talk about your races, talk about your runs, and get ready for the next one.
Yeah, we are about to start a training schedule for the Best Damn Race January 20th. So I'm going to start putting a workout in probably tomorrow. Is tomorrow the 1st? Yeah, tomorrow's the 1st.
Yeah.
So we're going to start tomorrow, and we're going to train from now until January 20th. And the cool part is my tent will be there, and so you can come meet us, and we're going to be there to cheer for you, and it's going to be so fun. And
that's in Safety Harbor.
It's in Safety Harbor. So sign up and follow along.
Yeah, so you can download the Strava app. Again, it is free. You go to the clubs, you go to the groups, and then you can find WFLA Run for Fun. And that's where Maria's going to put these. And it doesn't matter what pace you run.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do everything by effort.
So like if she says run hard today, you run a hard speed for you. It could be, and that's vastly different than everyone else. So don't compare.
We're not going to compare on Strava.
Right.
That's not what we're going to do. We're going to be cheerleaders of each other.
It's just what's hard or what's easy or what's moderate for you on that day. So that's how we can all use sort of the same pace plans. Well, this week's episode, Maria, you see it at the bottom of your screen, is what to know before running a race with a partner. And this is, I will say, I ran on Saturday with my friend Joe Pistillo, who's also joining us. And I had never run 26.2 miles scheduled to run with a person. I don't even know that I've run part of a full marathon with a partner who was scheduled and planned to be next to me.
Yeah, and actually, I'm actually surprised that you guys ended up running together the whole
time.
Typically in a marathon, it's very difficult to do. Usually it works when one person is a little bit faster than the other person and the other person decides to stay back. That's okay. But there are some tricks, and we got to talk about the reasons why it's good and the reasons why it can be a detriment.
And all right, so Joe.
Good morning. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. So how did you feel when we decided that we were going to run together?
Well, I like running with you. We run well together. I think that's important to run well with someone. We run a lot of training runs together. We run a lot of races together now. So when we decided that, it was fine by me. I'm used to your tendencies, and I think that's important when running with someone is the tendencies of what your partner does. So I know that you particularly like to run on one side of me or versus the other. You don't like the slope of a road, so you'll run behind me to stay off the slope of the road. So I think that's very important, is the tendencies of a runner. And if you're comfortable with that, then it makes it easy.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because if you don't run together on a regular basis, which I would never suggest you doing this unless you're pacing somebody.
Right.
I would never suggest you doing it in a marathon unless you've spent a significant amount of miles running together, like in training.
Which we have.
Yes, which you have, which is why I said
you
that
signed
was
off
fine.
on it.
Yes, I signed off on that. But the cool thing I like about having a partner is the accountability. Yeah. And it's not the accountability to finish the race. You're going to finish the race. It's the accountability to hold yourself back those first 5 miles. It can be really hard sometimes in a marathon to pull yourself back. We all get excited. We have adrenaline. And even though coach puts a pace plan on, I don't have a little drone that follows you and shoots things at you when you're not doing what I say. So it's on you.
Yeah.
But I always like when you have somebody with you that could be like, hey, we're going a little too fast. Hey, we're going a little too fast. That helps.
Yeah, I think it's that, and I think it's the comfortability by saying, hey, we're going too fast, or we're going too slow, or if one of us is using a watch that's not working, like we had in Indianapolis. Yeah. My running watch was working, Leigh's wasn't, so it was. I felt comfortable. Hey, Leigh, we're going too fast, or that's my fault. Or hey, Leigh, we need to, we need to speed up.
Fault. Yeah.
So that's something too with a running partner, that you have to feel comfortable enough with the person to tell them at the time while you're running, hey, we're doing something wrong. We should change it to make us better at the end.
You can't get offended.
I think at one point I said, 26 mile us is going to be really happy that we're slowing down right now, because this was mile 5 or 6, and you have all the energy in the world. I'm but 26 mile us doesn't have that energy. So let's remember 26 mile us is coming down the pipeline eventually.
And honestly, I like this in any race.
Yeah.
Like a 5K even, I will tell, you have to be secure. You got to be secure. It's really tough for an insecure person to do this, but I've run with a lot of my girls and been like, hey, we'll run the first 2, and guys, actually, I'll run the first 2 miles with you, and then you go as hard as you can go the last mile. Or in a 10K, hey, I'm going to hold you to 3, and then you guys can go. Whoever's feeling the best, go, go, go. And you can't get hurt. You can't get hurt feelings when your partners leave you, because that's what we do on race day. We leave each other. We don't do that on training runs usually, but on race day, we leave each other.
And that was one of the things, the conversations to have ahead of time. I told Joe my safe word, that my safe word would be, I need you to leave me. Because I knew he wasn't going to leave me if I was having a rough race. Because I had this rough race back in May, and that was definitely in the back of my head, this could be bad again. And I said, so if I just told him to go faster, I knew he wouldn't do it. But I'm like, I need you to leave me. I'm not you. I don't care about you. I need you to leave me. And so I said that would be my safe word, and he could leave. But I didn't have to call that safe word out. I felt great the whole time.
Yeah, and you just never know on race day.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know what could happen. And I've run so many marathons, and I told Luke I'd run my first one, or his first one with him, and we didn't have that conversation beforehand. And so I assumed that I would be fine, and I had a bad day that day, and we got to 16 and he was doing well. And I knew if I told him I was having a bad day, he would stay with me. Mm-hmm. I knew if I said, I need you to leave, he would still stay with me. He's my husband. I knew he would. So I said, hey, I'll catch up to you. And I got to go to the bathroom. You keep going. It's your first race. Then I went and I hid in the bathroom for 2 minutes because I knew I wasn't going to be able to catch him. And then at the end, I'd be like, okay, sorry, I didn't catch you, right?
And that's part of, I think that's part of choosing a partner. Leigh knew I wouldn't leave her. She's correct. I wouldn't have left her. I would have picked her up and carried her, drug her, but I wouldn't have left her. And she knew that going into it. We didn't have that particular conversation because she knew I wouldn't leave her and I knew she wouldn't leave me.
Yeah.
But there had to be a point. I think it's important to say, hey, if I want you to leave me, then we picked a safe word and that's what we went with, and we didn't have to use it, thankfully. So it worked out.
And it is important if somebody says they want you to leave, you need to leave.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because nobody wants to hold somebody back from what they're doing on race day. Nobody wants to feel that way. And no, it's not a misery loves company thing.
No, it's really not.
Nobody wants to do that. People would like to be miserable on their own. Now it is different if there's a medical emergency or something. But if you're just running and you're having a bad day and you tell your partner, hey, I need you to go, then you got to listen.
So I wanted to show, first of all, I wanted to show that my mom bought me Run for Fun bib board. So I had my Run for Fun bib attached with my Run for Fun bib boards. They're little basically snap things that you could put your bib on your shirt. And then my mom also had, mom and dad both gave me the Run for Fun on my shoe. So wanted to give a shout out to the mom and dads for, the wonderful things that they do.
We love mom and dads
we
on
love
the show.
mom and dads. The Indianapolis was gorgeous. It was almost pink tree colors. It was really beautiful. This was the day before where the nerves were starting to creep up. So now we're into the pictures and into race day. I think I talked to Maria on Monday or Tuesday and said the weather looks horrible.
Yep.
And you said maybe it'll change. And as a meteorologist, I'm like, no, this is just, it's not going to,
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that because I'm like, Leigh, of all people, should know it could change, which I will not write a pace plan until Thursday.
Yeah.
I won't do it for a Saturday or Sunday race. And that's because it can change.
I was waiting for the pace plan patiently.
Yeah.
So at about Thursday,
It
all of
did.
a sudden it did change. We had a little cold front that gave us 12 hours. Now remember, it takes us about 4.5 hours to run a marathon. So right before the marathon, it cooled down and the rain ended. And then about 6 hours after the marathon ended,
They were the luckiest.
were
There's
very
some
lucky.
good karma in this group, I can tell you right now, because they were the luckiest people.
And weather was great. You can see that the ground was wet because it rained literally up until race time. And the race started at 8. I think it was still drizzling at 7:30.
Yeah.
So it was right up until time. But the picture on the right, you can see that in the background, the monument. So Indianapolis is called the Monument Marathon. And so you went by 7, 8 monuments.
I think it was 11
No,
total.
I don't remember. All I know is
I lost count.
how we'd be like, monument. We didn't know what they were, but we ran by a whole lot of monuments.
That's fun.
All right,
Now, did you guys talk about, which I probably should have said something about, but did you talk about whether you were going to talk or whether you were going to put headphones in? Because that's kind of an important thing to talk about somebody that's racing a marathon. Because when you're talking, your heart rate can be up to 10 beats higher than it should be, and that's wasted energy. So
what did we talked about it?
We definitely talked about it. Leigh knows I run with headphones.
Yes, I do.
So it's how we met. So that's on another podcast. But we talked about it, and I had already told Leigh, I'm going to run with headphones, but I'll put one ear in one ear another. And Leigh and I don't have a tendency to talk much during the marathon.
That's smart.
We
Point things out.
There's a tree, just something to break the monotony.
There's a porta potty.
Yeah.
There's right.
Or there isn't.
Or there isn't one.
But we don't have a tendency to talk a lot. So as you're choosing a running partner, that's important. In the pre-race are we going to talk? How much are we going to talk? Do you want encouragement or not encouragement? Hey, you're doing a great job. Or don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
And some people like encouragement. Some people want encouragement. Leigh likes a little, and that's it. You know,
I don't need it all. But
yeah.
Interestingly enough, I'd never heard it really compared to this before, but I got home and my neighbor was asking me, she asked this, she's like, do you talk for 26 miles? Because she knew that I would run with someone. And I was about to answer when her husband says, it's like watching a movie with someone where you interject. I was like, actually, that's the perfect way to put it. That you interject, like, oh my gosh, can you believe that? And then you go back to watching the movie. It's like, that was actually the perfect analogy. Yes. Yeah. It's like watching a movie with someone. Yes, you mention things, but you don't chitter chatter the whole time.
No, and that's good to talk about, because if you're the faster runner that's running with a slower runner, sometimes it can be really annoying when the person is running easy and like talking all the time, and you're like, can you please just be quiet? For myself, if I'm running with somebody, if I have somebody pace me, they need to be quiet the whole time. Like, I do not like anybody saying good job to me. Do not say good job to me. That feels like, to me, it feels condescending and like, good job, little buddy. I'm like, no, I don't need a little buddy. I need this is what we're going to do. When I have somebody pace me, I don't want to have to look at my watch. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to break my stride. I just want to focus, and encouragement just makes me mad.
To me,
it's just me. Some people love it.
To me, it breaks my concentration, because you're trying to focus on the road. You're trying to focus on the race. You're trying to focus on, what mile you're in. And in the beginning, we talked not a lot, but enough to set the pace.
Because my watch went haywire immediately. Like, it was saying we were doing like an 8-minute pace. I go, well, that's clearly not what we're doing. And I even I hit the lap to be like, okay, let's just see if I can reset it. Nope. And so I immediately said, got to go by your watch. So I don't know what we're doing, but you're in charge.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, that can happen. That's why we do a lot of things in training by feel. Because when I say marathon pace feel, then when you get on the marathon course, if your watch doesn't know what it's doing, you can kind of dial into that feeling and go by that, because that can happen on a marathon course. Your Garmin is not 100% accurate. It's never 100% accurate. I run with Luke every single day, side by side, and his watch says something different every time than mine does. You can't rely on it always.
Leigh and I's watch, even in training, says something completely different, and we run side by side all the time. And two, you're in the city, so there's buildings, there's everything else,
and there's 15,000 other people also
trying to get a signal. It is.
But like you said, once we got to a point where you're talking about marathon pace feel, where we were running the same pace for quite a distance, every lap was the same, and I didn't even have to look at my watch or tell Leigh to slow down or speed up, because we were just running the same pace. And we knew we had that for a while.
So I picked out a few pictures from the race, and Maria, I wanted to show them to you because there were so many smiles.
So different than the last marathon, Leigh. I'm so happy about that.
So we'll go back and talk about. So this is the first time in my life that I've ever run 2 marathons in 1 year, and the first one did not go according to plan, and there were multiple reasons for that. We know that my iron was low. We know that
the dew point was high.
It poured rain, and with lots of hills, and the last 6 or 7 miles, I swear, lasted like a year. And I was walking, and I was and kind of frustrated. So what was our plan, Coach, for this one?
Well, let me start by saying that was like a triple whammy for you that day. And I want to be clear about, because people think that iron doesn't matter, and I'm talking about your Ferritin stores. That's what you use when you're running. Your muscles cannot get enough oxygen. So if you're not getting enough oxygen because you don't have enough iron, you can't breathe. And then you couple that with dew points that are higher, you can't breathe. So she had a really awful race. And when you have an awful race, it's very difficult to come back and run another marathon. And reason being, because you're worried that it's going to happen again. You have anxiety. You have race anxiety. And she trained all summer, so in the summer she wasn't going to feel good, even if her iron was higher. You're still not going to feel good. So we had a challenge going in. We really had a big challenge.
And we talked a lot about it, and we talked, and so this one, that's why I said I was a little anxious with Joe. If I said I need you to leave me, it's because I was having a bad race, and I remember what that was like, and I would not have liked anyone to be around me. Yeah, thankfully.
And if you run marathons for any amount of years, like I have everywhere from a 3:30 marathon to a 5:05, and my 5:05 was not my first marathon. It was, I think, my 7th or 8th. Like it just was a really bad day for me. Anything can happen, and you have to be prepared for that. It was the first time it happened to you. And so when that happens, like there's a lot of anxiety that goes into it. So I had, and you were having very high anxiety. Basically since August, we were really struggling with it wasn't running for fun. We were not running for fun. And I want to be clear about that because we say we want you to run for fun, but that doesn't mean it's always happy and roses and, unicorns. So I made I approached Leigh about maybe having her goal for this marathon to just be a negative split and feel good and not to go for a PR.
And of course, that means starting out slow, starting out faster slower as the race goes
and trying to get faster and having a lot in the tank at the end, just because she kind of needed to erase that feeling of falling apart in a marathon. And I've had some people that are like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going for a PR, and then the same thing happens again. And we get into this pattern and people start DNFing races and they can't get out of it. And I just wanted to avoid that with Leigh. Thankfully, Leigh is very coachable. And she was like, you know what? I don't want to hurt either. Like I would like to have a race that builds confidence. And so that's what we did. I gave her a pace plan that she was well able to handle. And she ran a beautiful negative split.
It was, again, when the weather was going to be bad, that added to my anxiety. So 2 or 3 days before, when the weather got better, I was like, okay, I can run this. I can do this. But I used a lot of the Maria techniques. This I didn't even tell Joe about necessarily. There was, we get around 11, 12. So, you're not even halfway, but you've already gone a really long way. And I started to get this is getting harder. And I said, thank you for the information. I'm not going to stop running right now. And then and it really did just go away. Yeah. And then there was another time when for backstory for people, when you have this low ferritin or low iron, your feet feel really heavy. Like they weigh like 50 pounds. So whenever I would start to feel like my feet getting heavy, I'd be like, can you? And I would say to myself, crazy, I know. Boy, do my feet feel light? And then I would pop them up, and then they would just start feeling light again. So it was all, there's tricks to play, but I would have to really say, wow, I feel how light my feet are. And then I would start popping them up again, and they would, as opposed to dragging them on the ground.
And I think we talked about this in another podcast, that your brain, when you've had a race like that, it takes Polaroid pictures in your brain, and because it never wants to feel like that again. And so anytime anything feels a little bit like you might have heavy feet, your brain automatically goes, oh no, I'm in danger. I'm anemic. And the reality is, no, that's not true. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's true. Yeah. So I always say, thank you for the information. We're still going to continue. Yeah. So those are techniques that you can do when you've had a bad race. And also just setting your ego aside and just saying, look, in order for me, we're looking at the big picture, right? You ran significantly slower than your PR. So, and that is fine. Yeah. There are some races that you can pick, and it's fine. And just say, I want to stay strong. I want to stay on this strong path. I had a really bad race. I want to redo this. I want to feel good about it. And then maybe next time we go for a PR.
Yeah. And that was, as a type A person, I need a goal. Yes. And that was my goal, is to finish looking like that. Right there with a huge smile on my face and next to my friend Joe, hand raised, because usually I am focused on that finish line. But I felt like I floated across the finish line. And then Joe got his PR. We'll bring him back in now, because Joe, all 26.2 miles, right up until 25 and a half?
25 and a half.
You were floating right there along with me.
I was floating. And to Maria's point, where Maria gave you a plan that may have been slower than your PR, the plan that Maria gave to you, which was ultimately us, I knew was a PR for me. So,
which I knew that too.
Yeah. I told her.
I know. I coached you in track too. I knew what you could do.
Yeah. So conversely, for your partner, it may be beneficial. So what you did was you got me a PR by slowing Leigh down. Yeah. Because we came together.
And it also distracts Leigh. Yeah. She has a different goal of getting you a PR. When it starts to hurt for her, she can be like, you know what? I'm doing this for Joe.
Right.
And so there are ways to combat a bad race. This is one of them.
Yeah.
And I love it. Like I'm not the person that ever thinks, oh, we should just give up a PR when we have the chance. But there are when you're healthy ways to do it in a way that can build your confidence so that you can hit it harder the next time.
Right.
If you do too many marathons, this happens.
Yeah.
You know.
And I knew Leigh had a bad Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So it was the same for me. I was there and I didn't want to let Leigh down. And I was nervous going into the race too. You all have any race, you have anxiety and nervousness, but I was nervous because I knew that this was a faster pace for me. I knew that Leigh had a bad run in Cincinnati. So I wanted also to make sure, okay, well, I gotta get Leigh across. So I have to be there for Leigh also.
Yeah.
So it worked out really well.
It was a good combo. And I have to tell you, I have anxiety too as a coach because I have watched many people fall apart. And I'm like, I was watching you guys the whole time and I'm like literally shaking and I'm like, refresh. And I'm like, this is so, and then I always know at 20, when I get the 20-mile marker, if you guys are getting faster, I know we're good. If we get to the 18 or 20-mile mark and we're going down, I know it's going to be a long marathon. So as soon as you hit the 20-mile mark, I was like, oh gosh, yes. And I was so happy when you FaceTimed me. I was like so elated to get a smile on her face because I was like, we've talked about Leigh off quite a few clips this summer, and she deserved this.
So we only really passed one pacer. So if you don't know, there's people who run with a little flag that tell you, let's say you have a goal of 4 hours and 30 minutes. They have a little flag that says 4:30, and they run along. And we ran up to the 4:30. Now I think they started before us, so we knew that we were going faster than 4:30 anyway. And then we passed them.
Yep.
And then we passed them. There was exactly 5 miles left, and I think they could still hear me. But I go, "Hey Joe, wanna go for a 5-mile run?"
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Because it was like, we can do, how many 5 miles have we run together? Like, let's just
too
pretend,
many.
let's
Too
just
many.
pretend we haven't run 21.
Yeah.
And let's
Yeah.
just go for a 5-mile run.
And at that point, I looked at Leigh and she was smiling, and we're at 21, and she was smiling, and I'm like, oh, Leigh's good.
Yep, I'm good.
I'm fine. We just passed the pacer of my PR, so I was floating.
And how good does it feel when I think it feels that much more special when you run a solid, good race after you've had a really awful one. There's nothing that feels better than that. You're like, oh my gosh. I mean, in the time when you have a bad race, you just feel like your life is over. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't run anymore. I'm quitting. This is awful. And then when you do the right things to fix it, and you really did. Like,
Right,
that's where you need to give yourself some credit. Like, you took your iron, you stayed strong. Of course, we had some meltdowns. That's normal to do. But you did all the right things to set yourself up for success for the next time. And that's why you had a successful race.
Yeah.
So good job, Leigh.
And I tracked Leigh in Cincinnati too. I did the same thing. I stared at a dot for 4 hours, and
as it got slower and slower.
And I knew going in, that was part of my anxiety too, going into the race was, it's stuff that we didn't talk about, but we knew because we run together a lot. It was, she had the bad race. So let's get back past 5. Okay. We got past 5. Let's get past 10. We got past 10. Let's get to the halfway. We got to the halfway and it was like, okay, we're doing good. We're on a good pace. We both feel good. We're both comfortable. The weather was, at this point, the weather was fine. I didn't have any problems with the weather.
Yeah, no, it was fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
It ended up being pretty good.
So one little thing that could have gotten us a little faster is if we didn't have to use this porta potty.
That was far.
So it's far off from the course. Our friend Lauren took this picture from the race course. Joe and I couldn't find a porta potty, and he said,
"What mile was that?
7.
Did Lauren run with you guys from a ways?
Until past halfway.
Okay.
Yeah. But so so that was the closest porta potty that we could find, and so we took off across this very wet field and across another lane of traffic and went to the bathroom and then got back on the course.
The other thing about a partner is helping you figure that stuff out.
Yeah, we did.
Sometimes your brain doesn't work correctly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just nice if you have race anxiety to have somebody like, hey, we're going to go through this together. Like,
yeah,
I think it eases your anxiety a little bit. At
about mile 5, I get a little tap on the shoulder that it's like we're gonna start planning our stop.
Yeah.
And again, we don't talk a lot, but we talked enough to plan our stop. I'm going to slow down. You're going to use the bathroom. You'll catch up to me. It's not a problem. There's a water, usually at a aid station, there's bathrooms. So we had planned this, a literal 30-second conversation between the two of us. Okay, I started to slow down. She started to speed up. That aid station, the bathrooms, porta potties were busy.
Very busy.
So then it became let's find porta potties somewhere. And usually construction sites have porta potties, stuff like that. So we could have picked one a little closer to the course.
But this was miles after that first initial conversation. So it was getting to be where it was there behind a bush. I mean, it was literally like I had to go to the restroom. So so I was thankful to Lauren for snapping that picture. And then
I couldn't believe that.
So this is
I gave Leigh a pace plan for a 4:25.00.
There we go.
That never happens. I mean, I usually get within the minute, but I'm like, she literally crossed the finish line at 4:25.00.
And remember, my watch is gone. So like this was.
And remember, see that little one that didn't work?
Yeah, the 15K.
That was your coach panicking. Like, did you get off the course?
Right.
What happened?
So for those of you who are looking at this or listening, so at certain places along the race course, they have a mat that you run across, and it registers where you know how fast you're going and how long it took you to get there. And all your friends and relatives are tracking you at home, waiting on for that split or that piece of information. I ran over it, but it didn't clock it. So it looks like I've gotten off the course.
Yeah. I mean, it was a little terrifying for a hot minute, but
thankfully,
yours was the only one that did that. Everybody else's was fine.
and thankfully, the people that were tracking us knew that we were running together.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, well, Joe's still there, so they've been together the whole time. So,
and real quick, we'll talk about what I should not have done to you. So
I just heard this story this morning.
So for those of you who know, Joe has been a baseball player his whole life. There's one thing you don't do to a pitcher when they are having a really good game, which is
you tell them they're having a really good game or throwing a no-hitter or throwing a perfect game. You leave the pitcher alone is what you do at this particular point in a baseball game or anything. A football game, you don't tell the quarterback he's doing, you don't go to Tom Brady and say, Tom Brady, you're going to throw another touchdown here.
Or you're about to break some sort of record.
Oh, yeah, you're going to break some record. So that's the one thing you don't do to a partner.
I thought there was no way I could have messed that up. I waited until past mile 25. We have less than a mile to go. And I said, Joe, you're going to get this PR. You're going to get this time. And he says, shut up. And I say, we could walk it in. You're minutes ahead of your PR. Shut up. And then?
I got a cramp.
Like
just like that, I reached down, I grabbed my left leg because it was not only, it was hamstring and quad that cramped up at the same time. Because Leigh said, I'm going to get a PR. Had nothing to do with anything. It wasn't
the previous 25 miles.
It wasn't 25 and a half miles.
What she meant to say was, even if you get a cramp, she will carry you across the finish line so you can get a PR.
Again, that's way too much talking for us at that. At mile 25 and a half, it was okay. 1 mile till friends is kind of our little mantra we say between each other is a mile till friends or 2 miles till friends because they're at the finish line waiting for us.
Oh, till your friends.
Till our
I've
friends.
got Chandler on my mind, so I was thinking, are we watching Friends at the end?
No. But because it also helps in Gasparilla Distance Classic because 1 mile from the finish line is our friends.
You
can count down to that,
So,
and then there's just 1 mile to go.
So the loud cheering station,
Right.
which is the best in the biz.
But in this case, it jinxed me. I knew it would because I knew at about mile 21. I was on a PR pace and I felt good and we were cruising and I knew how long it would take to go 4 or 5 more miles. So I was like, okay, we're on a PR pace. Even about mile 20, I knew I was on a PR pace. And like, if we can cruise through this, we're good. Half mile to go. Joe, you're going to get a PR. That's bad. So
That's bad.
Very bad.
So I think he's kidding because that could not have happened within the same 15 seconds that you would get this cramp. Ha ha. Oh, you're for real. I got the anguish on his face. So I said, salt tabs. And he went to pull out because he uses the pill form, which has a lot more sodium. but takes longer to get through. And so he pulls out the pill of a salt tab. No. So I pull out what's left of my chewable salt tabs, and I'm literally pushing them into his mouth. Just eat these.
Yeah. At that point, you don't care about a sweaty hand or you know, the electrolytes is stripped down all her hand. I didn't care. And she was shoveling salt tabs into my mouth.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the you know, I wanted to finish right next to Leigh in this race.
Yeah.
And we were going to amputate my leg. Or you know, we were going to finish together, and that was. And at that point, I knew I was going to get a PR.
Yeah.
I knew I was, but it's usually the pitcher gives a home run up the next pitch or the next at bat. So
honestly, I did that in my first time I BQ'd. I did it to myself.
You're like,
I was literally, I looked down. I think I had like 3 miles to go, and I was like, I'm going to BQ for the first time by 6 minutes. Like, oh my gosh! And then all of a sudden, everything went kind of black, and I started moving to the right for no reason, and it was blurry, and I was like, all of a sudden, I'm like, you said this, and now you're going to stroke out.
Yeah.
How is this possible? And then it went away within like 2 minutes, but I remember saying that to myself. I do think there is a little bit of putting it into the universe that does, you know, I know you didn't do it with intent, but everyone out there, don't say it. And not even in your head.
Well,
because I was thinking it at mile 20, like, oh, he's got this. But I was like, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. And I couldn't hold back at 25.
She was just so excited.
And
that's what happens. You get excited at the end. But really, when you have a mile left in a marathon, a lot can happen. Like, you just don't know.
And again, Leigh and I run together a lot. She could tell my heart rate went up through the roof. Yeah. And it's like, and the calmness of running, even at mile 25, went away. Like I was panicked because it was not going to cramp.
So now, did it just dissipated, and then you were able to run, or did you walk it in, or
he ran it.
I ran, and
that's the athlete in Joe. Yeah. It was like, this is not happening. I will drag my leg across the finish line.
You want to tell him how you flew?
I flew in because every time it would you know, a cramp when it's first starting, it comes and goes pretty quickly. Yeah. And my heart rate was through the roof. Leigh shoveling salt tabs into my face. The remaining Gatorade I had with me, I was getting down as fast as possible. At this point, I didn't care. We're a half mile from the finish line. And so every time it would start, I would kind of do one of these.
Man, I wish I would have paid her.
No.
I totally get that feeling. I would totally be doing that.
Yeah. So I flew.
It's panic.
It was. And Leigh knows this, and she knows me, and she could tell. She's like, calm your heart.
I said, we can slow down. We can slow down.
And I didn't want to slow down. That was not my goal.
So did that stop the cramp from doing? Was it this? Because maybe I could tell people, if you do this, then you can get rid of the cramp.
Yes. It got rid of the cramp right till we hit the finish line. And then I didn't got a cramp then. Yeah. So again, the nice part about running with a partner is Leigh was standing right next to me, so I could grab her.
Well, and kudos to Leigh. It was salt, probably. I mean, at that point, you're probably a very heavy salt sweater.
Yeah.
So
and it wasn't hot, so I wasn't sweating as much for the first 23 miles.
Yeah.
And then the sun started to peek through the clouds a little bit, and I was sweating more. And I actually took an extra salt tab at mile 23, which I normally wouldn't. But I took one at 20 and then at 23.
Well, that was smart.
So, but it's the hand flutter.
Yeah, the hand flutter.
I'll tell people that.
And I also knew, because again, as a partner, that Joe, one of his previous marathons, had gotten a cramp and landed on the ground.
Yeah.
So I knew that, like, this is a thing that can happen, and we're not going to let him land on the ground.
Well, then pacing too is pacing and carbo loading are extra important for you if you're someone that tends to cramp.
And like you said, the snapshot of having a bad marathon. My previous Chicago is when I had the cramp, and both hamstrings cramped at the same time, and I ended up face down pretty quick. Yeah. But I remembered that, and I knew that
that's where the flutter came from.
That's where it was holding me up at that particular point. But you know, I knew that at that point that I could end up face down, and this is going to be bad because Leigh's going to finish not with me, and that was my goal.
Yeah, and we did. Look at that.
There we go.
Crossing the finish line and then immediately taking the picture with
Yep.
the quintessential picture that you take after the finish line. So let's go back, Maria. I know there was a couple of things you wanted to say again. Now that we've kind of gotten to tell our story, because everyone likes to tell your story and the things that you learned during a race. What are the good and bad aspects of deciding to run a race with someone?
I think we pretty much touched on them. Mostly, it's making sure that you communicate about being left. It's okay to leave people. It's also important to talk about how you want to run the race. Are we running it with headphones? Are we talking? Are we not talking? It's all about expectations, right? Mm-hmm. So if the expectation is there that we're staying together and we're going to run, that needs to be set ahead of time. And if it's not, that needs to be set ahead of time. That's pretty much it. And don't just run with somebody that you don't run with normally, because I know, at least for me, if I end up with a running partner that is a heavy, foot striker, I mean, it will drive me insane the entire time. And so you have to, 26 miles is a long way to go with people. I rarely have people finish marathons together. Rarely. It's a very rare.
We did it.
I know.
We did it. I think too. It sounds weird, but you have to like the person you're running with.
Well, yeah.
You really have to enjoy the person you are running with and be comfortable, but to truly enjoy the person you are running with.
I mean, it's 4.5 hours is a long time to spend with anyone.
Yes.
4 hours and 25 minutes.
25
not a half hour.
minutes.
I think one thing too that we didn't mention, I thought we were looking at race photos, and there are race photographers on the course throughout the entire course. And something fun that Leigh and I didn't think about because we were going to be together was fun race pictures.
Yeah.
Like, is there something we can do when we see a cameraman,
you guys did that.
Like a pose or something like that. There, one of the runners that you coach does phenomenal race photography.
Joe. You got to give Joe Bailey
the other Joe.
The other
Joe. He is leaping into the air. He is amazing.
And that's what makes running with a partner fun, because you can do a pose and the cameraman will take your picture together. And there's a couple where maybe I'm posing and Leigh's not, or Leigh's posing and smiling and thumbs up and I'm not. I'm looking at the ground or I'm looking somewhere else. But I think that's something fun that you can do no matter what distance of race you're running, is pose for the cameraman, so you have those pictures and those memories later.
Yes, and that's important.
And would you ever tell someone, again, what would be a reason why they should not run with a partner?
If a person is kind of insecure, like if you're insecure and are going to feel like you're racing another person, that's not a good idea. Like if there's any kind of like weird competitive thing going on, run by yourself. Don't do
be
that.
Competitive. That allows you to be very competitive.
There is, in my opinion, there's good competitive and there's bad competitive. And we all want to help each other to our goal. Like at the end of the day, we want to run the best we can run on that day. And it really shouldn't be compared to what everybody else does, but it is a race and people win. Like that is what happens. So if that's your mentality, run by yourself. That would be.
Are you ready for your coach's drill?
I mean, I kind of just already did it.
I know. That's why I was like, no.
I will do a coach's drill. I promise.
So Maria gets to speak for 1 minute. She's already spoken now for 45 minutes about it, but it is about, how about letting go of that ego?
This pertains to a lot of things, actually. Letting go of your ego actually makes you a better runner because you run your easy pace easy enough. So let go of your ego and don't try to compare your easy paces to other people's easy paces because everybody's different. But in racing, letting go of your ego is really important because we get in this mindset and we train for a certain marathon pace and we train marathon miles, and then we get to the day, and if the weather isn't what it says it's going to be, we get really angry and like, this is not fair. But this is part of the marathon game. And if you let your ego go and you just look at it from a data perspective, you can't beat science. I'm going to run the best race I can run on that day. Let my ego go. You can run an excellent race on a hot day. It's absolutely possible, but you have to let your ego go.
Your best race doesn't always mean the fastest time.
Absolutely.
Like I would say this was my best race. Not my fastest time, but where
you had nothing go wrong.
Great.
Yep.
I felt great from the jump all the way through over that finish line. So to me, this is my best race that I've ever run, even though it might not have been my fastest. Oop, I just put it away.
And sometimes we need to do that. Sometimes we do.
I can say it was my best race.
It was your fastest.
Yeah, that's my fastest.
And that's the other thing I'll say.
Yeah,
like, if you PR a race, do not be like, wow, I could have done better. It is the fastest you ran ever in your life, even if it was by 1 second. And you might never get that again. So always say, good job, me.
Yes. Yes. And as my husband always says, you don't want to ever PR by too much.
Yeah.
That way you can go sneaking it back. Like, why would you go out there and run a 15-minute PR? Because
nobody can ever take that away from you.
No.
What you did.
Nobody. So I'm going to put Joe on the spot.
Oh, boy.
Are we unretired? After Saturday?
Wait a second. I don't think I was in on any retirement marathon discussions.
He at one point had retired from marathon. This was the coming out of the retirement. We weren't sure how long
Joe, first of all, I wasn't letting either one of you come out of marathon retirement. You're both too good of a marathon.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
My legs feel good today.
Yep.
And, that's to be determined.
Okay.
On the retirement.
I'm going to talk you out of that, Joe.
Because as great as the race feels, it is 12 weeks or 16 weeks out of your life that you have to dedicate to it. So it is a dedication thing.
I'm retired until my next marathon.
There you go. That's fair.
I'm
That's
retired.
fair.
Till the next training cycle starts, I'll be retired.
That's fair.
Even if we take a little sabbatical.
Little sabbatical.
Right.
Joe, thank you for 26.2 miles in 4 hours and 25 minutes and all the many, many, many training runs that we do.
Thank you, Leigh.
Thank you to Coach for getting me through this. I've been running, as I said on this podcast, 13 years. And for the first time in 13 years, after I started a podcast called Run for Fun, it became not fun for a little while. So thank you for getting me through that. I told her it was like walking on clouds yesterday and Sunday.
Well, honestly, Leigh, thank you for trusting me because a lot of people still fight me on that. So I really appreciate you trusting the process and not giving up.
Never going to give up. Never going to give up. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back here on Tuesday for another Run for Fun. Hopefully, we're still feeling great. Bye, y'all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.